Good evening and welcome to the Late Night Science, your quiet place to drift into rest while still letting curiosity roam. Wherever you are listening from, a quiet room, a dimly lit car, or beneath a heavy blanket of stars, I invite you to settle in, slow your breathing, and let the noise of the day drift away. Tonight we begin a journey inward into the living body of our planet. If this calm space brings you peace, I'd love for you to share where you're joining from. And if you'd like to keep exploring with us, a quiet tap on subscribe helps this small world grow. Now, close your eyes for a moment. Imagine the stillness beneath your feet. The floor, the soil, the bedrock feels so permanent, so utterly still. Yet deep below the earth stirs. Beneath that hush, molten rivers slide and coil like muscles beneath the skin. The continents, vast and ancient, drift at a pace slower than thought, yet never stop. What we call solid ground is not solid at all, but a slow dance of immense patient motion. The planet breathes, but in its own deep time. The pulse of Earth is not one you can hear. It is not the heartbeat of a living creature, but the rhythm of heat and gravity, of pressure and release. It begins far below in the mantle, a slow ocean of rock so hot it moves like honey over millennia. This churning drives everything we know, the rising of mountains, the drifting of continents, the trembling of earthquakes, the slow renewal of the sea floor. Each movement, imperceptible to us, adds up to the grand heartbeat of a planet alive with motion. You might imagine standing barefoot on soil. Beneath you, invisible waves of heat rise upward, remnants of the Earth's fiery birth. That warmth is the echo of a time when the world was young, still glowing from within. In every inch of rock, that ancient memory lingers. The core spins slowly, two spheres of metal, one liquid, one solid, turning against each other, generating magnetic fields that cradle our atmosphere, shielding life from the cold, hard glare of the sun. What seems unmoving is in fact an orchestra of constant, unseen rhythm, and like a heartbeat, the Earth's motion has its own pulse. The crust bends, breaks, and reforms. Mountains are born from collision, crumble to dust, and rise again from molten stone. Over millions of years, the planet renews itself, an endless cycle of destruction and creation. To us, it feels eternal, but to the planet, we are fleeting, a brief shimmer across a vast, ongoing story. This pulse is slow enough to lull even the most restless mind. It reminds us how time stretches far beyond human clocks. How patience is written into the body of the earth. Beneath every step you take lies a river of magma, moving with a calm we can only envy. Each tremor, each volcanic breath is a whisper from the planet's core, telling us, I am not still, I am alive. Science shows us that this slow motion of rock is not chaos, but pattern. Convection, currents, rising and falling like breath. Hot rock rises from the core, cools as it nears the surface, then sinks again, pulling continents in its wake. It is a slow inhalation and exhalation that spans the ages, sculpting oceans and shaping skies. The continents we know, Africa, Asia, the Americas, are mere pages drifting atop this deep, molten sea. Yet beneath the data and diagrams, there's a deeper truth we can feel. The Earth's motion mirrors our own inner rhythm. Our hearts beat, our lungs expand and contract, our blood flows in quiet cycles. We too are made of moving matter, born from the same cosmic heat that forged the core. When you listen closely, when you stand in silence and let the hum of the ground reach you, you might feel that shared pulse and the connection between your heartbeat and the slow thrum of the earth. There is poetry in that symmetry. Just as we are sustained by the blood that circulates within, life on this planet is sustained by the magma that circulates below. Volcanoes release gases that form the air we breathe. The shifting plates give rise to mountains that shape weather and rivers. Even the soil beneath forests, the minerals that nourish roots, are gifts from the ceaseless recycling of stone. The earth is not a static cradle for life. It is the engine that makes life possible. And so we walk upon a surface that is not firm, but flowing. We build our cities on continents that slide quietly across invisible boundaries. We call the ground solid because our lives are too brief to see its movement. But if you could speed up time, the continents would drift like clouds, collide, and separate in slow, magnificent ballet. Oceans would open and close like breathing lungs. The crust would ripple like fabric, and the mountains you know would rise and vanish like waves. Think of the patience required for that. Think of a world where motion is measured not in seconds but in eons. It humbles the mind. It reminds you that stillness is often only an illusion, that beneath even the calmest surface lies motion, purpose, transformation. The same is true within you. Beneath the quiet of your skin, your cells divide, your atoms hum, your body remakes itself in endless cycles. You too are an ecosystem in motion, a living fragment of the planet's rhythm. In the end, the Earth's pulse and our own are part of the same cosmic inheritance, both born from the same explosion of matter and energy that gave rise to stars and planets, both guided by the same laws of physics that turn heat into motion, chaos into pattern. You and the planet are built from the same dust, stirred by the same unseen breath. So tonight, as you listen, remember that the world beneath you is not a stage, but a living participant, not silent, but softly singing. Its pulse may be slow, but it never ceases. The crust may seem still, but it is forever flowing. And somewhere deep below, the molten heart of the world beats with the quiet assurance of continuity, a rhythm that will outlast us all. Perhaps, in this vast, shifting planet, we find a mirror of peace, that stillness is not the absence of motion, but its perfect balance. That life itself is a delicate harmony between what moves and what endures. As you drift toward rest, you might wonder, if the ground beneath us breathes and beats, then what of the air above? Does it too have rhythm, a living pulse of its own? The pulse beneath our feet continues upward, and like a slow exhale, it becomes air. What rises from the deep warmth of the Earth's heart stretches invisibly above us, a skin of vapor and motion, so thin and yet so vital that without it the planet would fall silent. Tonight, we lift our gaze from the soil to the sky, to the breath that wraps the world. It begins gently, the faint tremble of wind moving through grass, the whisper against a leaf, the silent stirring of dust on a windowsill. What you feel as breeze is not emptiness, but the movement of countless unseen particles, flowing and colliding, each one carrying warmth, moisture, and the memory of oceans. The air is not still. It swells and sighs, a vast invisible tide in constant motion. The Earth, it seems, does not only have a heartbeat, it also breathes. If you could see the atmosphere not as space but as substance, it would appear as layers of shimmering fluid. It clings to the planet like a veil of glass, growing thinner with altitude until it vanishes into the black of space. Within this veil, every cloud, every gust, every falling raindrop is part of a great respiration, a rhythm measured not in seconds but in seasons. The clouds are its lungs. They inhale vapor from the sea, rise and cool, condense and release. Their slow drift across the sky mirrors the breath of a sleeping world. When they exhale, rain falls, carrying life back to the soil. The air, like blood, circulates warmth from equator to pole, balancing heat and cold, light and shadow. Winds become arteries of motion, carrying pollen, dust, and seeds tiny fragments of life riding invisible streams. Science tells us that this circulation is driven by contrast, warm air rising, cool air descending. But in the language of the night, we might say that the Earth dreams through these movements. Every gust, every storm, every quiet dawn mist is a small expression of the planet's need to balance itself, to find harmony within turbulence. The air learns to flow where the pressure softens. Just as rivers learn to bend around stone, you inhale, and what enters your lungs once drifted above distant oceans, brushed against the wings of migrating birds, rose from the surface of forests and fell from the breath of mountains. Each breath you take is shared, an ancient exchange between you and everything that has ever lived. The air within you may have once been inside the lungs of a whale, a wolf, or a wandering ancestor. Through breath, life becomes communal. The atmosphere binds every living thing into one continuous cycle of exchange. We often think of air as absence, as the space between things. But air is a body of its own, vast, soft, and alive with motion. It carries sound, scent, and warmth. It holds sunlight in its blue shimmer. It is the stage upon which clouds dance, storms gather, and lightning writes its brief calligraphy of fire. Without air, there would be no color, no sound, no echo of rain. It is the medium through which all experience passes. When the planet exhales, winds are born. From the heat of deserts rise the great trade winds, crossing oceans like invisible rivers. Over continents they gather the scent of forests, the salt of the sea, the ash of volcanoes. They bring rain to one place, drought to another, shaping the rhythm of civilizations. Empires have risen and fallen with the breath of these winds, their sails filled or silenced by the planet's invisible lungs. And yet, amid this grand motion, there is peace. To stand in the quiet after a storm is to feel the planet resting between breaths. A hush so complete it feels sacred. In those moments you can almost sense the balance being restored, the air reorganizing itself, readying for its next inhalation. The stillness of air is not absence of movement, but the pause that makes the rhythm whole. At the level of science, this balance is governed by the interplay of sunlight and shadow. Solar energy warms the surface unevenly, setting air in motion. Water vapor rises, condenses, releases heat, and falls again as rain. This dance of energy builds storms and dissipates them, writes the shifting weather that paints our days. The physics of it are elegant, a global engine powered by difference, striving always toward equilibrium. But beneath the formulas, there is wonder, that something as weightless as air can sculpt the fate of worlds. Imagine now that you could drift upward, rising through this living breath, through the troposphere, where clouds form and life unfolds, through the stratosphere, where thin blue light glows and the ozone shields us from the sun, higher still into the mesosphere, where meteors burn in fleeting trails, up to the exosphere, where air thins to nothing, and the breath of the planet merges with the silence of space. From that height, Earth would appear as a single, pulsing sphere wrapped in a soft halo, a breathing organism, exhaling warmth into the void. We rarely think of the air as alive, yet its motions sustain us as surely as our lungs sustain our bodies. Within each gust lies a history of oceans evaporated, forests transpired, volcanoes exhaled. The air remembers. It holds the scents of long extinct flowers, the ash of ancient fires, the sighs of forgotten creatures. To breathe is to inhale time itself, to share space with all that came before. Even the storms, wild, unpredictable, and fierce, serve a purpose. They mix the air, redistribute heat, carry life to new places. They remind us that chaos, too, is part of the Earth's harmony. For every hurricane that destroys, there is a soft breeze that pollinates. For every lightning strike, a gentle mist that nourishes. The same breath that roars can also soothe. The same motion that tears can also heal. At night, when the world quiets and the wind softens, you might notice the faint rhythm in the leaves, the sway of branches, the whisper along the eaves of your home. That is the earth breathing slow and unhurried. Each exhale cools the ground. Each inhale warms it again with morning. The same breath that turns the seasons also turns your own. The invisible bond between the inner and outer worlds. And so, the pulse beneath our feet meets the breath above our heads, completing a circle of motion. Fire below, air above, one feeding the other in an endless cycle of renewal. Beneath the molten heart beats, above the atmosphere sighs. Together they sustain the delicate balance in which life can exist. As you listen to this breath, you might begin to sense its continuity, how it touches everything, everywhere, at once. The wind that bends the grass also shapes the clouds. The air you exhale becomes part of tomorrow's rain. And somewhere, far away, another living thing will breathe that same air and continue the pattern. Perhaps that is what it means for a planet to live, not to move as we do, but to circulate, to exchange, to breathe in quiet perpetuity. And as the world exhales once more, that breath finds form again, flowing downhill, gathering into streams and rivers, seeking motion across the land. For the next chapter of this living planet does not rise, it falls, carving paths through stone, carrying life in liquid form. The earth exhales and the breath that falls becomes water, gathering, winding, and carving its way through stone. From the quiet melt of a mountain-top glacier to the wide shimmer of a delta at dusk, rivers emerge as the living veins of the planet, flowing with memory and motion. Just as blood sustains the body, rivers sustain the world. They carry nutrients, warmth, and the whisper of distant rains, weaving through the landscape as the planet's circulatory system. To trace a river is to follow the story of transformation. It begins in silence, a trickle beneath snow, a secret seep of melting ice. The water is young then, clear and restless, born from the breath of the mountains. As it gathers, it becomes more than itself, a stream, a current, a force. It sculpts the land with patience and persistence, carving valleys, smoothing stones, carrying fragments of the old world into the new. In its reflection, the sky bends and follows, and the journey of the river becomes the story of gravity's devotion to the sea. Like the pulse of blood through arteries, the motion of a river is rhythmic, a ceaseless circulation between sky and ocean, vapor and rain rise and fall. The water that flows past your hands once lived inside clouds, inside glaciers, inside the deep bodies of ancient seas. Every molecule carries a record of time. Dissolved minerals, drifting memory, the faint signature of all it has touched. To touch a river is to touch history in motion. Science tells us that rivers are born from imbalance. Heat draws water into vapor, cold condenses it into rain, and gravity guides it home again. Yet what results from this simple equation is poetry, the sculpting of entire continents, the creation of ecosystems, the pulse of civilizations. Around rivers, life gathers. Where water moves, it nourishes. Where it lingers, it cultivates. Every forest, field, and city owes its existence to these liquid arteries. Stand beside a river and listen. Beneath the steady flow, there is a rhythm that feels familiar. Perhaps it mirrors your own pulse or the sound of breath as it leaves and returns. The flow of water resonates with something primal. the memory of life's origin in the sea, the echo of the first heartbeat that stirred within a single cell. Long before lungs and skin, life began in liquid motion. And even now, that motion continues, flowing through us as it flows through the world. Each river is a path of connection between sky and soil, between mountains and oceans, between the living and the dead. It carries the ashes of volcanoes, the dust of deserts, the nutrients of decayed leaves. It feeds wetlands that breathe oxygen into the atmosphere, nourishes roots that build forests, sustains creatures whose migrations trace the same paths season after season. Through rivers, energy moves, not in isolation but in communion. There is a strange tenderness in how rivers shape the land. They do not conquer, they persuade. Drop by drop, they wear away mountains, carrying their bones to the sea. Over millennia, they write entire geographies, drawing lines that determine where life may flourish and where it fades. Even deserts hold the memory of rivers. Ancient channels etched in stone, dry but not forgotten. Every canyon, every valley, every fertile plain is the fossilized trace of water's passage. Civilizations have always gathered by rivers, drawn by their promise. The Nile, the Indus, the Tigris, the Yangtze, each gave birth to cities, languages, and gods. In their currents, people saw divinity, for nothing else so perfectly joined motion with renewal. The river floods, destroys, retreats, and leaves behind the gift of fertile soil. It gives and takes in rhythm, teaching early humans the cycle of balance. Our ancestors built rituals around this flow, praying not to stop it, but to stay in harmony with its moods. But rivers remember more than creation. They also carry our excess, our waste, our forgetting. They reflect our relationship with the world, generous when respected, fragile when neglected. The same currents that once brought life to every shore now bear the burden of plastic and poison. Even in their suffering, rivers remind us of our dependency, that the line between destruction and renewal is as thin and fluid as water itself. Yet, despite everything, rivers heal. When left to themselves, they braid and shift, rediscovering paths of balance. They cleanse through motion, filtering impurities, dispersing heat, giving back oxygen. Like veins that repair after a wound, rivers recover, reminding us that life's essence is not perfection, but persistence. There is a quiet intelligence in how water moves, always finding the lowest point, the path of least resistance, the way through. In its yielding, it becomes powerful. It teaches us that gentleness can carve stone, that patience can move mountains. The Taoists saw this truth long ago. Water triumphs because it does not resist. It flows around, beneath and through. Its strength lies in its surrender. If you follow a river long enough, you will see how its character changes. Near its source, it is narrow and swift, full of clarity and cold intent. In the plains, it slows, meandering like a thought at peace. Near the sea, it spreads wide, embracing its own ending with grace. But the end is not truly an end. For in the delta, the river dissolves into the ocean, and the cycle begins anew through evaporation and rain. What disappears becomes sky once more. Every end is another form of return. Rivers are not merely features of geography, they are the body's metaphor made visible. Within us, blood flows in branching channels mirroring the patterns of tributaries. Our veins and arteries echo the world's waterways, branching, converging, carrying nourishment and memory. The river outside and the bloodstream within are twins in purpose and design. Both exist to connect, to sustain, to carry life forward. At night, when moonlight glides across a quiet river, the reflection trembles like a living thought. In that shimmer lies the essence of impermanence, the constant motion beneath the illusion of calm. You might stand on its bank, hearing both silence and sound at once, and realize that the world's beauty comes not from stillness, but from flow. To listen to a river is to hear time moving, not rushing, not escaping, but continuing. It is to feel that what passes is never truly lost. It becomes something else, somewhere else. The same molecules that once drifted in prehistoric seas now fall as rain upon your window. The river, like blood, is a promise that life circulates endlessly. So when you next stand beside a river, feel it as more than water. Feel it as the world remembering itself, as the heartbeat of mountains, the exhale of clouds, the song of time made liquid. Let it remind you that everything flows, that nothing stands alone. And as the river reaches the sea, spilling into vastness, it touches once more the ancient boundary between motion and stillness, where water becomes sky and sediment becomes soil. For there, at that quiet meeting place, a new transformation begins. The flowing veins of water meet the waiting skin of the earth, the thin, breathing layer where stone becomes life. The river slows, fans out, and finally surrenders to the stillness of land. Its waters seep and settle, mingling with dust and decay, giving rise to something humble yet miraculous. Soil, the earth's skin, thin, fragile and alive. From orbit, the planet appears smooth, wrapped in oceans and stone, but down here, beneath our hands, lies a living film no thicker than a few breaths of air, the layer that makes all life possible. Soil is where the river's memory rests. It is where water meets stone and becomes nourishment. It is the place where the body of the world turns itself inside out, transforming death into renewal. Every forest, every blade of grass, every breath of food begins here, in the quiet chemistry beneath our feet. It may look still, but it is busier than any city, humming with countless forms of life, each one engaged in the oldest conversation on Earth. When you hold a handful of soil, you are holding time itself. Each grain is a remnant of mountains ground to dust, of shells and bones turned to mineral, of roots that once stretched toward the sun. The smell of rain on dry earth, the deep, comforting scent, is the perfume of bacteria awakening, breathing after sleep. Soil remembers, but it does not cling. It accepts all things, the fallen leaf, the decaying branch, the ashes of fire, the bones of the forgotten. In its dark patience, it turns them all into beginnings. Science tells us that soil forms through the slow weathering of rock, aided by the work of living organisms. Lichens and mosses colonize bare stone, secreting acids that break it apart grain by grain. Over centuries, the fragments mix with organic matter, decomposed plants, microbes, fungi, and together they become fertile ground. What began as the hardness of mountains transforms into softness, into sustenance. Rock becomes life, and life, in time, returns to rock. Beneath every forest floor lies a world unseen. A tangled web of roots and filaments, threads of fungi stretching farther than sight, connecting trees to one another in a silent network of exchange. Through these hidden threads, nutrients and messages flow. A dying tree may send its remaining sugars to a sapling nearby. A grove shares warnings of drought, disease, or light. The soil beneath us is not passive. It listens, communicates, and remembers, and deeper still, beyond the reach of roots, are creatures we rarely imagine. Nematodes, mites, worms, and microbes. Billions in every handful. Churning, digesting, building the foundation for all growth above. They are the unseen architects of life's renewal, transforming decay into fertility. Without their endless labor, the Earth's surface would drown in its own remains. Instead, they turn what has ended into what begins again. The soil is an alchemist. Its magic lies in cycles, not miracles. Carbon from the air settles into fallen leaves, then into the ground, where it sleeps until drawn up again by roots. Nitrogen, phosphorus, calcium, all the invisible letters of life's alphabet, circulate through this layer, rewritten with each generation. Every harvest, every forest bloom, every coral reef owes its vitality to the slow work of decay happening just below. If the planet were a body, the soil would be its skin. Sensitive, porous, self-renewing. Like skin, it protects, breathes and heals. And like skin, it can scar. When stripped bare by erosion or exhaustion, it loses its ability to regenerate. Desertification spreads like a wound, and the balance that sustains us begins to falter. Yet with care, soil restores itself. Given time and rest, it rebuilds, reminding us that resilience is not force, but patience. To walk barefoot on the ground is to meet the living surface of the earth directly. Each step is an exchange: ions, moisture, warmth. The body recognizes it instinctively the way an infant recognizes breath. Beneath the soles of your feet lies a community of living things that outnumber the stars in the known sky. They work unseen, yet their labor holds the world together. In silence, they create abundance. Soil, in many ways, is the quiet conscience of the planet. It asks for little and gives everything. It does not resist death, for it understands that decay is only transformation. When a leaf falls, the soil receives it without sorrow. When an animal returns to dust, the soil embraces it without judgment. It knows that endings are simply the beginnings of smaller lives. Even the colors of soil tell stories. The deep red of iron-rich clay, the black of organic humus, the pale sand of once drowned shores. Each hue is a signature of the life that has passed through it. To farmers, these colors are language. To geologists, history. To poets, the palette of the living earth. In ancient myths, humanity was said to be shaped from clay, our bodies molded from the very dust of the ground. Perhaps the old storytellers sensed a truth that science now confirms, that every element in our blood, our bones, and our breath comes from the soil. We are the earth thinking about itself, moving through its own minerals, speaking through its own dust. Yet we often forget the fragility of this skin. It takes centuries for a single inch of topsoil to form, but only moments to lose it, to drought, to deforestation, to the haste of human hunger. When the soil thins, the planet's memory begins to fade. The ground hardens, water runs off instead of soaking in, and the living network below suffocates. What dies in silence beneath us echoes above, in the air and rivers and sky. Still, soil endures. Given the smallest chance, it begins again. Seeds find cracks in stone, moss clings to ruins, roots dive deep when no one expects them to. The earth wants to heal. Life, it seems, is not something that lives upon the world, but within it. A slow, breathing conversation between mineral and moisture, decay and growth. When you kneel and touch the ground, you touch the same substance that once formed the bones of trilobites, the trunks of ancient forests, the shells of creatures long vanished. It is a communion across epochs, a handshake between what was and what will be. In the warmth of soil, the planet remembers itself. As night deepens, imagine the earth beneath you turning softly in space, its thin layer of living skin glowing faintly in moonlight. Beneath that quiet surface, countless unseen lives are at work, endlessly weaving the next morning into being. The hum of their motion is the sound of continuity itself, the murmur of a planet always becoming something new. And yet, beneath this patient skin, another world stirs, a realm not of life and decay, but of fire. Deep below, the earth burns with a heart that never cools. Its molten blood drives mountains upward and powers the magnetic field that shields us all. The soil dreams of peace, but the core dreams of motion. And in that hidden furnace lies the next chapter of our journey, into the fire inside. Beneath the soil, deeper than roots and stone, the planet stirs with a hidden heat. The deeper we travel, the less the Earth resembles the quiet world we know. Pressure builds, temperature rises, matter bends into forms that seem impossible, solid, liquid, and something between. Down here, in the dark miles below mountains and seas, the world is not still. It seethes, it breathes. The crust, that thin and fragile skin of rock, floats on a restless sea of molten stone, a vast convecting mantle that moves in slow, patient waves. Beneath it, the outer core churns with liquid iron, and at the very center, compressed by all that weight, lies the solid heart of the planet, a sphere of metal as hot as the surface of the sun. This is Earth's secret fire. Its pulse, its power source. We live on a planet with a beating heart. The heat that burns below us is not new. It is ancient, older than oceans, older than the continents that drift above. Some of it is the fading glow of creation itself, the heat left over from the planet's birth when dust and rock collided in violent storms of gravity. Some of it comes from the decay of radioactive elements deep within the core, whose slow transformations release a steady warmth. Together they keep the world alive in ways we rarely consider. Without this internal fire, the surface would be a cold, still sphere. Mountains would not rise. Continents would not drift. Volcanoes would not breathe life and death into the sky. The Earth's magnetic field, our invisible shield against solar wind, would vanish. The planet would lose its protection, its motion, and perhaps even its ability to host life. The core is not just heat. It is hunger. It wants to move. It wants to change. It sends its energy upward through the slow churn of molten iron, setting the mantle into motion. That motion, over millions of years, carries entire continents as if they were ships on an invisible tide. It opens oceans, closes them, shatters mountains, and builds new ones. The land beneath our feet drifts at the pace of fingernails growing, imperceptible in a lifetime, but enough to rewrite the face of the world over eons. Once all continents were one, fused in a single supercontinent called Pangaea. Before that, others, Gondwana, Rodinia, Columbia, came and went, breaking apart, reforming. The Earth rearranges itself, endlessly sculpted by the heat below. Volcanoes are the vents through which this hidden furnace exhales. When they erupt, we glimpse the raw interior of the planet made visible, the molten language of creation. Lava pours from the ground, new crust forms, gases escape into the atmosphere, and through it all, the cycle of destruction and renewal continues. Volcanic eruptions may seem violent, but they are part of the planet's long conversation with itself. Every plume of ash and river of fire reshapes the surface, enriches the soil, and even helps stabilize the climate over deep time. The air we breathe, the nitrogen, the carbon dioxide, once rose from volcanic mouths billions of years ago. What feels like chaos is, in truth, continuity. If soil is the Earth's skin, then magma is its blood, a restless current that circulates through deep arteries, keeping the body of the planet warm. Each tremor, each tectonic shift is a heartbeat, and though we cannot hear it, the Earth is constantly murmuring beneath us, a low vibration that never stops. Seismologists have learned to listen to this whisper. By studying the way sound waves move through the planet, they map the unseen layers below, the solid crust, the viscous mantle, the liquid outer core, and the dense inner one. From these vibrations, we've come to know that the inner core spins, not always in sync with the surface, as if the planet's heart turns at its own rhythm. It is strange to think that the ground beneath us, which feels so steady, is actually floating on fire. Yet this paradox of calm surface and chaotic depths is the essence of the planet. The Earth lives in tension between opposites, solid and molten, motion and stillness, creation and collapse. The fire below gives rise to the patterns above. The slow drift of continents shapes the flow of oceans, which in turn sculpt the climate and carve the history of life. Mountain ranges alter wind and rain, glaciers grind valleys, rivers carry sediments back to the sea, and in time, the sea returns them to the deep through subduction zones, where oceanic plates sink back into the mantle. Nothing is wasted. Even the earth recycles itself. In myths across cultures, fire has always been the divine spark, the force that animates matter. Prometheus stole it from the gods to give to humankind. The Hindu Agni carried it between heaven and earth. The Aztecs believed that the world ended and began anew in cycles of sacred fire. Perhaps these myths are echoes of a deeper knowing, that fire is not only destruction, but also transformation. The Earth's core is that ancient fire made real. It is the unseen forge where the planet's destiny is written in heat and magnetism. The ion currents within it generate the magnetic field that shields us from cosmic radiation and guides the migration of birds, whales, and even bacteria. Without it, the solar wind would strip away our atmosphere and the world would fall silent. And yet this same core is cooling, slowly, imperceptibly. The planet is aging. The fire that once blazed bright now burns with patience. Billions of years from now, the interior will quiet, the magnetic field will fade, and the Earth will become geologically still, like Mars, its younger sibling, frozen and lifeless. But for now, the heart still beats. Every volcano, every quake, every whisper from beneath reminds us that the planet is not finished, that it is still becoming. The continents shift, the oceans breathe, the poles wander. To live here is to live on something that moves, something that dreams of change. As we return from this imagined descent, from the molten iron heart to the cool crust above, we carry a new awareness, that the ground we stand on is not fixed, but alive. Its heat is the same that once forged the stars, the same that burns within every living cell. The fire inside is not only within the earth, it is within us. The warmth of our blood, the spark in our neurons, the energy that sustains our lives, all trace back to that same cosmic furnace. We are, in every sense, children of fire, and as that fire pushes outward, it meets its opposite, the vast, cooling expanse of the oceans. There, heat and memory entwine. The molten heart feeds the blue lungs above it, and the cycle continues, a planet forever balancing between burning and breathing. Next, we drift toward those waters, to the oceans, where time is kept and the planet remembers. From the fire below, we rise toward the cool expanse above, to the surface, where the molten heart meets the breath of the world. Here, the planet's restlessness gives way to calm, and the quiet shimmer of blue stretches beyond the horizon. The oceans, vast and unbroken, cover most of the earth, their surface a mirror to the sky, and their depths a world of their own. They move not with haste, but with purpose, carrying warmth, salt, and story through every wave. Beneath those waves lies a library of time. Every drop of seawater holds memory, not of moments, but of millennia. The ocean remembers what the land forgets. It holds the imprint of ancient climates, the dissolved traces of mountains long eroded, and the exhalations of creatures long extinct. Its salinity, its temperature, its rhythm, all are records written in liquid form. preserved in a language of tides and currents. If the Earth has a pulse, then the oceans are its breathing, a slow, planetary inhalation and exhalation that spans centuries. With every rise and fall of temperature, with every drift of current, the planet exhales warmth and draws in cold, regulating its own fever and calm. Without this vast equilibrium, the world would burn by day and freeze by night. The ocean is not still. It circulates in patterns both intimate and immense. Surface winds drive the upper layers, but deep beneath, density and temperature shape the slow, unseen rivers of the abyss. The Great Ocean Conveyor Belt, a global current that takes nearly 1,000 years to complete its journey, connects every sea on Earth into a single, breathing organism. Warm water rises and drifts poleward. Cold water sinks and returns, carrying not only heat, but also nutrients, carbon, and life itself. This circulation is the bloodstream of the planet. It nourishes coral reefs and plankton blooms, feeds fish and forests alike, and even dictates the rhythm of weather far above the waves. When the ocean warms, it whispers to the sky and storms are born. When it cools, deserts form and ice spreads its pale fingers across the poles. The air listens to the sea, and the sea listens back. It is easy to think of the ocean as an expanse, but in truth it is depth that defines it. Light penetrates only a few hundred meters before surrendering to darkness. Below that, the world turns black and silent. Yet even here, in the crushing pressure of the deep, life persists. Strange, luminous creatures drift through the void, their bodies shimmering with bioluminescence, living constellations in a watery cosmos. Some have never seen sunlight, yet they glow as if carrying fragments of starlight within. In these depths, hydrothermal vents spew mineral-rich water from the planet's molten interior, creating oases of life independent of sunlight. Around them gather ecosystems that defy expectation. Crabs, tube worms, and bacteria that feed not on light, but on chemistry. These are reminders that life began here, in the deep ocean's crucible, not on land. It was the sea that first learned to live. Even today, the ocean is our oldest ancestor. The salt in our blood mirrors its composition. Our cells still depend on the same elements first dissolved in its depths. Every heartbeat echoes the rhythm of its waves. To live on land is to be a piece of the ocean, momentarily walking on shore. The sea also carries sound differently than air. In water, vibrations travel farther and faster, weaving an acoustic web that spans entire oceans. Blue whales call across thousands of miles, their low frequencies bending through layers of temperature and depth. These sounds, inaudible to human ears, form a planetary symphony, songs of territory, of connection, of longing. To the ocean, sound is memory made physical. Scientists now listen to these undersea echoes to understand the world's pulse. They hear the cracking of icebergs, the rumble of undersea earthquakes, even the faint hum of distant ships. The ocean, it turns out, is not silent. It is full of murmurs, carrying the signatures of both natural rhythm and human interference. Our engines, our sonars, our noise, all have entered its memory, joining the long chorus of time. The sea shapes us, even from afar. It gives us rain, regulates our temperature, absorbs our carbon, and reflects our sky. It makes the planet blue, the color that astronauts first saw from space and called home. And when we dream of calm, of endlessness, of depth, it is often the ocean we imagine, yet the ocean is changing. The warming climate alters its currents, melts its ice, and shifts its chemistry. The great conveyor slows. Coral reefs bleach and die. The ocean, once a balance of creation and destruction, now carries an imbalance. Too much heat, too much carbon, too much noise. Its memory is being rewritten in real time. But even in its change, the ocean teaches patience. It moves slower than storms, slower than seasons, yet always toward equilibrium. Over time, it reabsorbs and redistributes, transforming chaos into pattern. What we call destruction, the ocean calls transformation. If the Earth's fire is its heart, then the ocean is its mind, remembering, regulating, dreaming. It is where all things meet, the heat of the core, the breath of the air, the minerals of the crust, the remnants of life. It binds every system together in a fluid logic older than thought. We often say the ocean is alive, but perhaps more truthfully, it is life itself, a living archive of beginnings. Every wave that touches the shore carries molecules once part of ancient creatures. Every tide recycles fragments of what was into what will be. And when you stand by the sea and feel the pull of its horizon, you are sensing not distance, but depth. The weight of memory stretching through time. The ocean keeps secrets no language can name. It knows the first rainfall that filled its basins, the first fish that broke into light, the first reflection of the moon. It has listened longer than we have existed. And even now, as its currents turn and whisper through the dark, it listens still, not only to the planet, but to the cosmos above it. For through the sea's motion and magnetism, Earth's watery memory connects with something greater. The unseen geometry that wraps around the planet like an invisible soul. That is where we drift next. Upward and outward, into the silent embrace of the field that shields and guides us. The magnetic soul of the earth. From the whispering sea we rise once more. Through air, through cloud, through the thin blue halo that clings to the planet, like breath. Beyond it, the sky grows dark, and yet something unseen still holds us close. We are entering a realm without walls, without color, without sound, but not without presence. Here, the planet's invisible self unfolds. Encircling Earth is a vast and silent force, a geometry made of motion. The magnetic field. It cannot be touched or seen, yet its influence is everywhere. It bends the path of charged particles, paints auroras across polar skies, and guides the migrations of creatures great and small. It is the unseen architecture that defines where the Earth ends and space begins, a shimmering cocoon woven from the planet's own pulse. This magnetic field is born deep within the molten core, where liquid iron moves in endless currents. As that metal churns, it generates electricity. As electricity moves, it creates magnetism. Together they form a self-sustaining loop, a dynamo that has burned for billions of years. In this way, the heart of the planet projects its essence outward, shaping a shield that reaches far into space. Without it, the solar wind, a constant stream of charged particles from the sun, would strip away our atmosphere, just as it did to Mars long ago. The magnetic field deflects this cosmic storm, letting only a fraction slip through. Those particles spiral down along invisible lines of force, colliding with the upper atmosphere to ignite curtains of green and violet light. These are the auroras, the planet's visible soul, rippling where space meets air. There is something profoundly human in that image. Light born from collision, beauty from defense. The aurora reminds us that protection and radiance are not opposites but partners, that even in resistance there can be grace. The magnetic field is not static. It wavers, shifts, and even reverses entirely every few 100,000 years. North becomes south and south becomes north. These reversals are written into volcanic rocks like pages in a magnetic diary, allowing scientists to trace the restless history of the field. Though the switches are chaotic, they never destroy the field, only reshape it, reminding us that even the most enduring forces change. This field is not only the planet's shield, Audit, it is also its compass. Long before humans drew maps, other beings already knew this geometry by instinct. Sea turtles navigate entire oceans, returning to the same beach where they were born, guided by magnetism imprinted in their bodies. Migratory birds sense the field through tiny crystals of magnetite in their cells, aligning their paths to its invisible lines. Even bacteria swim along magnetic rails, as if tracing the planet's secret skeleton. We, too, once read this map unconsciously. Ancient sailors watched the needle dance upon the compass, unaware that it pointed not to true north, but to a wandering magnetic pole that drifts each year. For millennia, this invisible force has quietly shaped exploration, migration, and even myth. In many cultures, magnetism was once seen as a kind of spirit, an unseen will that drew iron and guided life. The Greeks spoke of lodestones that loved metal. The Chinese believed in the dragon's energy that flowed through the earth and sky. Even today, when we understand magnetism as physics, not magic, its presence feels no less mysterious. It connects the living and the cosmic, linking the deep core of the planet to the solar storms that rage across the sun's surface. The magnetosphere, the field's outer shell, is a region of dynamic balance, where the Earth's power meets the sun's fury. It stretches outward on the dayside, compressed by solar wind, and flows into a long tail that trails into the dark. Within it, charged particles spiral, collide, and sing. Literally, instruments have captured these plasma waves as sound, eerie, melodic vibrations that echo through the void like the whisper of some celestial instrument. To listen is to hear the earth humming, and perhaps that hum is not so different from a heartbeat, a rhythmic proof of aliveness on a planetary scale. For this magnetic soul is not separate from the rest of Earth. It is woven into every cycle we've seen. The core's motion feeds it. The ocean's salt currents respond to it. Even the atmosphere with its winds and storms dances subtly under its influence. It is a thread connecting the molten interior to the frozen poles, the deep sea to the upper air. When a solar flare lashes out, the field trembles. Compasses quiver, satellites shimmer. Power grids pulse with unwanted energy. Yet after each storm, balance returns. The Earth absorbs, adapts, and continues. Like a living being, it breathes through disruption. We often think of soul as something internal, a secret center. But the Earth's soul, if it can be said to have one, surrounds it. It moves outward, holding space for life, shielding it, guiding it. It is both armor and aura, a signature of identity written not in words, but in waves. And just as the magnetic field holds the planet holds us. Our hearts, too, generate magnetic rhythms, faint echoes of the same physics. Every beat sends a subtle field into the air, a reminder that magnetism is not foreign to life. It is part of what life is. The forces that guide birds and shield the sky also pulse within us. To live on Earth is to dwell inside an invisible miracle, one we cannot see, yet depend on completely. We are wrapped in it every second, bathed in a field that hums softly between body and cosmos. As night falls, you might imagine this, the planet glowing faintly, its field shimmering outward like the breath of a sleeping creature. The auroras flicker at its poles like thoughts rising and fading. The core spins. The sun exhales. The earth listens. And between them, a magnetic thread holds everything together. But even this shielded world is not complete, for within the shelter of this invisible soul, something else rises. A green world of silence and dreaming. A world that breathes, that thinks in whispers, that connects through roots instead of lines of force. That is where we now walk. Into the forests, the lungs that dream beneath the magnetic sky. Beneath the magnetic sky, we return to the ground, to the hush of a living world that breathes in green. Here, light becomes air, and air becomes life. The forests stand like vast lungs pressed against the sky, rising and falling with the rhythm of the world's breath. Each tree is a slow exhalation of sunlight, each leaf a whisper in the great respiration of the planet. Step inside, and sound changes. The wind softens, the light cools, and the pulse of the earth grows audible again. The forest hums at a frequency of stillness, a layered silence alive with movement. What seems unmoving is, in truth, a great conversation, whispered through root and leaf, through sap and spore. Forests breathe in rhythm with the sky. When dawn arrives, they open their pores to drink in carbon dioxide and exhale oxygen, the air that fills our lungs. When night falls, they reverse, inhaling what they've given, their breath sinking to the turning of the planet. Each tree, each fern, each moss-covered stone participates in this invisible tide. Together they form an atmosphere not just of air, but of memory, a shared respiration, billions of years old. The chemistry of photosynthesis, so familiar in textbooks, feels almost divine when seen through this lens. Sunlight strikes a leaf, and photons, particles of light born in the heart of a star, are captured by green pigments called chlorophyll. Through this quiet alchemy, light is transformed into sugar, into life itself. Energy from distant fusion becomes matter here, in the hush of morning mist. The forest, then, is not simply alive, it is starlight made flesh, yet the trees are more than factories of air. Beneath their roots lies another dimension, an underworld of threads and filaments weaving through the soil like neurons. This is the mycorrhizal network, the wood wide web, where fungi connect the roots of trees into a vast, communicating community. Through these fungal threads, trees share nutrients, warn of pests, and even send chemical signals of distress. When one tree suffers drought, others reduce their water use in sympathy. When one is attacked, it releases compounds to help its neighbors prepare defenses. It is easy to think of trees as solitary beings, rising in still dignity. But here, beneath the soil, individuality dissolves. The forest acts as one organism, sensing, responding, adapting. The elder trees at the center, sometimes called mother trees, feed their young through underground networks, nurturing the saplings that grow in their shade. Death itself becomes generosity, as fallen logs return their stored carbon and minerals to the living roots that surround them. This hidden web is the forest's brain, not made of neurons, but of filaments that pulse with information and exchange. It is slower, more patient, but no less aware. Messages that travel through a human nerve in a fraction of a second may take hours here, yet the forest has time. It has always had time. Scientists once hesitated to use words like communication or intelligence for trees. But as research deepens, those metaphors begin to fit. Plants detect light, gravity, sound, touch, and even chemical signatures of nearby species. They remember seasons, anticipate droughts, and react to the vibrations of caterpillars chewing their leaves. Some acacia trees release alarm chemicals when grazed by giraffes, and others, downwind, respond before they're even touched. To think, perhaps, is not always to have a brain. As you walk among trees, you move through a network that senses your presence. Each breath you take, oxygen exhaled by leaves, returns as carbon dioxide, feeding the next generation of growth. The exchange is intimate, ancient, and constant. When you inhale, the forest inhales with you. The scale of this living architecture is staggering. Forests cover a third of the Earth's land, yet they hold most of its biodiversity. In the Amazon alone, a single hectare may contain hundreds of tree species and tens of thousands of insects. Each layer, canopy, understory, forest floor, holds its own world, its own symphony. Even fallen leaves, decomposing in silence, play a role in the rhythm. They release nutrients, feeding fungi and microbes that return the forest's energy to circulation. Death here is not an end, but a redistribution, a way for the system to remain whole. Forests also shape the climate. They draw carbon from the air and send water skyward through transpiration, seeding clouds that fall again as rain. In this way, they make their own weather, feeding the rivers that nourish plains and cities far away. The Amazon produces so much moisture that its evaporation forms an aerial river, an invisible stream in the sky that sustains half a continent. When forests vanish, those sky rivers dry and entire regions change. The forest, then, is not just part of the planet's system. It is the system, one organ among many, breathing with the rest. Its breath shapes the winds. Its roots shape the soil. Its shade shapes the water that flows. But perhaps what draws us most to forests is not their science, but their silence. To walk among trees is to feel time slow down, to sense continuity that stretches far beyond human scales. Some redwood sprouted before the Roman Empire. Some pines have witnessed the birth of agriculture. Even in the brief span of a human life, a forest reminds us what endurance sounds like, and yet forests dream. They respond to cycles of light and darkness, of moon and season, of fire and renewal. Their seeds sleep until conditions are right. Their leaves adjust to patterns of wind, learning the rhythm of storms. In some way they remember, not in thought, but in pattern. The forest dreams through repetition, through resilience. When lightning strikes and fire sweeps through, the forest does not resist, it transforms. Many species depend on fire to open their seeds, to clear the old for the new. Out of the ashes rises another generation, born from flame and memory. Even destruction is part of the dream. In the canopy above, leaves rustle like breaths. In the soil below, roots hum with slow electricity. Between them, air moves in gentle pulses. Oxygen, carbon, moisture. The same materials that cycle through our lungs, our blood, our thoughts. We are, in a sense, extensions of this dream, mobile branches of a greater organism. To listen to a forest is to overhear the planet thinking aloud. Each tree a neuron, each leaf a signal, each root a synapse connecting stone to sky. And as science begins to trace these connections, lightning striking soil, roots carrying electric charge, fungi sending impulses, and we begin to see the shape of something vast emerging. Perhaps the forest is not only the planet's lungs. Perhaps it is part of its nervous system, the early stirrings of awareness through which the world senses itself. And as we move deeper into that realization, we begin to glimpse the next truth, that every flash of lightning, every migrating bird, every fungal filament is part of one great circuitry. The planet is not only alive, it is awake. That is where we turn next. From the dreaming lungs to the signals that travel through them, to the great network of roots, storms, and living currents that together form the planet's nervous system. The forest breathes, and in its breath we begin to sense something more, a quiet signal pulsing through roots, through air, through sky. It is not the whisper of wind or the echo of water, but a pattern, faint, electric, alive. The earth, we realize, is not only breathing, it is sensing. From the flicker of lightning to the slow hum beneath our feet, signals travel through this living world, invisible threads connecting everything that moves, grows, or changes. Lightning flashes striking soil, sending electric waves into the ground. Fungal webs beneath forests translate those charges into chemical messages. Ocean currents respond, weather patterns shift, herds migrate. The response is planetary, an orchestra of impulses that, together, make up something like awareness. Imagine it. A planet with a nervous system, not a single brain, but billions of communicating parts, roots and rivers, clouds and creatures, exchanging information in cycles of energy. Each storm, each tremor, each swarm of birds is a pulse in this vast biological circuit. It begins, perhaps, with electricity.
Lightning, that sudden fracture of the sky, is more than spectacle.
Each bolt is a discharge between Earth and atmosphere, equalizing charge, shaping chemistry. Long before there was life, lightning struck the ancient oceans, forging amino acids, the molecules that would one day form cells, nerves, thought. The first sparks of life may have been born from the same fire that still dances in the sky. Today, billions of flashes each year continue that ancient rhythm. They charge the ground with nitrates, feeding forests and fields. They stir the air with ions that seed rain and shape cloud patterns. Each storm becomes a kind of synapse between sky and soil, an electrical handshake maintaining the planet's balance. Beneath the surface, another network hums. The mycorrhizal web, the fungal threads that connect trees, carry slow electrical impulses of their own, signaling distress, drought, or disease. These signals travel centimeters per second, unimaginably slow by human standards, yet perfectly suited for a world that measures time in centuries. Some researchers now believe these pulses help coordinate resource flow across entire forests, a primitive neural network spanning continents. And then there is us, the wanderers, the listeners, the latest sparks in this circuit. Our brains, with their flashing neurons, are built from the same chemistry as storms: sodium, potassium, calcium. The same ions that move through lightning bolts move also through our thoughts. The electric charge that leaps between clouds also leaps between our synapses. The planet's electricity became biology. Its storms became consciousness. But the network extends beyond biology. Migrating animals, birds, whales, butterflies, navigate by Earth's magnetic field, following invisible lines that wrap the planet like a second skin. Salmon return to the rivers of their birth, guided by magnetic memory. Sea turtles cross oceans to the same beach where they once hatched. These creatures are, in a sense, living neurons carrying signals through motion, keeping the planetary circuit complete. Even the atmosphere participates. Jet streams and ocean currents act like moving pathways, carrying heat and moisture, redistributing the planet's energy. When a butterfly flaps its wings in one hemisphere, a cyclone may rise in another, the so-called butterfly effect, a reminder that cause and effect here travel like signals through a body. In the soil, bacteria exchange genes through plasmids, swapping information the way neurons pass impulses. Coral reefs respond to temperature like reflexes. Ice sheets groan and fracture, sending pressure waves across the ocean floor. The Earth is constantly sensing itself through feedback, adaptation, resistance, and within this constant signaling lies something profound: self-regulation. The Gaia hypothesis, once dismissed as poetic, now feels almost inevitable.
Life and the planet co-evolved into a single self-balancing system.
The forests regulate air. The oceans regulate heat. Volcanoes and microbes cycle carbon.
Lightning restores nitrogen. Animal migrations distribute nutrients across land.
Each part responds to the others, like cells in an immense living organism. When the planet overheats, clouds form, reflecting sunlight. When it cools, volcanoes release carbon, warming it again. The balance wavers, then steadies. Feedback loops ripple outward like the reflexes of a sleeping giant. And yet, to call it alive is still controversial, because it does not think as we do. Its awareness is distributed, slow and systemic. It does not dream, it remembers. It does not plan, it responds. But what is awareness if not the ability to sense change and act upon it? Perhaps consciousness is not confined to brains, but emerges wherever complexity and feedback meet. In that sense, the Earth may be conscious, not in thought, but in rhythm. Not in words, but in balance. Consider the migration of wildebeests across the African plains. Millions of bodies move in coordinated patterns driven by instinct and rainfall.
As they move, they churn soil, spread seeds, fertilize the land.
The migration itself shapes the ecosystem that in turn guides the next migration. It is a feedback loop, behavior and environment evolving together. The movement of animals becomes a signal the Earth uses to sustain itself. Similarly, plankton blooms in the ocean reflect sunlight, cooling the surface. Their death releases dimethyl sulfide, which seeds clouds. Another feedback, another reflex. Coral reefs bleach when the water grows too warm. A pain signal, perhaps, a visible warning that the balance is slipping. Everywhere we look, feedback becomes feeling. Storms are the planet's heartbeat. Tectonic tremors are its shivers. Ice caps are its memory, storing records of breath and fire across eons. In this light, humanity's arrival is not an intrusion, but an intensification. We are the planet becoming self-aware of its own awareness, part of the network that learned to name it. Our satellites now map lightning storms, magnetic fields, and ocean currents. In a sense, the planet observing its own nervous system. And yet, awareness brings both creation and consequence. Our industries alter the chemistry of air and water. Our networks of electricity and data mirror the planet's own, but at a faster, more volatile scale. The digital web that encircles Earth could be seen as a new neural layer, an artificial extension of the same planetary intelligence that once learned to grow trees. But the more connected we become, the more we resemble the Earth itself, vast, complex, interdependent, sensitive to imbalance. Our challenge now is not to dominate this system, but to learn its tempo, to think in planetary time. Because this nervous system is delicate. Disrupt the forests and the air changes. Disturb the oceans and the climate stirs. Cut the roots and the signal weakens. The planet will adapt. It always has. But the adaptation may no longer include us. Still, in the quiet moments, a storm breaking over the sea, a lightning flash illuminating the horizon, we can feel it, the pulse beneath everything. The slow, patient hum of connection. The Earth is not a rock floating in void. It is a living circuit of air, fire, water, and thought. A being that senses through lightning, breathes through forests, and dreams through life itself, and like all living systems,
It moves. Through its nervous signals come tremors. Through its tremors, motion.
beneath the crust, plates grind and drift, continents collide and part again. The pulse of the planet becomes choreography, the slow dance of stone and time. We are about to follow that movement, tracing the planet's great geological ballet to witness how continents breathe, break, and reunite. Beneath the still hum of the planet's nervous system, another rhythm unfolds. One so slow it can only be felt in the bones of mountains and the silence between epochs. Continents move. They slide, collide, and drift apart in a choreography that spans hundreds of millions of years. To human eyes, the land seems fixed, eternal. Yet to the Earth, it flows like a dream. The crust beneath us is not solid ground, but a floating mosaic, fractured into vast plates that ride upon a sea of molten rock. Beneath the illusion of stillness, the planet shifts and reshapes itself, endlessly recycling stone. Continents, those great rafts of ancient rock, glide across the mantle like ships on a dark ocean, their paths guided by invisible currents of heat. If you could see the Earth sped up, millennia flickering by in seconds, you would witness a slow, graceful waltz. Continents collide and shatter, mountains rise like frozen waves, and seas open like eyelids. Every inch of the landscape is a note in a geological symphony, composed not of sound but of pressure, time, and motion. This dance began billions of years ago when the planet first cooled and cracked. From those fractures emerged the first plates. drifting fragments that would one day form the familiar shapes of the world. They have never stopped moving. Even now, Africa inches toward Europe, the Himalayas continue to rise, and the Atlantic widens centimeter by centimeter. Beneath the surface, convection currents swirl, slow rivers of heat rising from the core. Like breath, this motion expands and contracts the crust above, pulling continents apart and pushing them together. The Earth exhales in rifts and ridges, inhales in subduction zones where one plate sinks beneath another. It is a planetary respiration measured not in seconds but in ages. Each movement rewrites the story of life. When continents merge, they form supercontinents, vast single lands like Pangaea, where species mingle, climates shift, and ecosystems intertwine. When they drift apart, they isolate, allowing evolution to branch and bloom in new directions. Geography sculpts biology. Motion shapes destiny. In the deep past, this dance has both destroyed and created. The rise of mountains trapped carbon from the air, cooling the world into ice. Volcanic rifts released gases, warming it again. When continents joined into one, deserts spread across their heart. When they drifted, coastlines multiplied, inviting new life to the shores. Every tremor of stone echoed in the fates of creatures. Even extinction, that great reset of life, often begins with movement. The Siberian traps, born of massive volcanic outpourings 250 million years ago, choked the sky and ended most of Earth's species. Yet from that ruin, new forms emerged, adapted to the reshaped world. The planet's destruction and creation are not opposites, but steps in the same dance. And in this slow choreography lies something almost human, the yearning to change and renew. The continents drift apart only to reunite again and again. Every few 100 million years, they assemble into a single mass, a supercontinent, before breaking and wandering once more. Pangaea was not the first, nor will it be the last. The next, already whispered in the language of tectonics, may one day be called Amasya. If you listen carefully, you can sense the rhythm of that coming reunion. The Atlantic stretching, the Pacific shrinking, the continents slowly converging toward a future embrace. Time itself is the dance floor, and motion is its music. Yet even within this grandeur there is fragility. Mountains erode, rivers carve valleys, and the land itself is worn down by wind and rain, as if each step of the dance comes with its own gentle decay. The Himalayas, though towering, crumble grain by grain into the plains. The continents, though massive, are fleeting sculptures in a fluid world. What we call permanence is only motion we cannot perceive. And still, within this motion, there is order. The boundaries of the plates, ridges, faults, subduction zones, form a circulatory system of creation and destruction. Along mid-ocean ridges, molten rock rises, cools, and becomes new crust. At subduction zones, old crust melts back into the mantle. Every stone, every grain of sand is part of this endless exchange with the earth, folding and unfolding itself. To the creatures living upon it, this slow motion becomes climate, geography, and fate. A drifting continent may carry its forests from polar chill to tropical heat. It may summon new rain shadows, deserts, or monsoon plains. Species evolve to match the rhythm, then vanish when it changes. The shape of life is carved by the shape of land, and within that truth lies a strange comfort. That change, no matter how vast or violent, is the only constant that endures. If we could stand outside of time, we would see the continents not as fixed territories, but as dancers in endless motion. Their collisions are embraces, their separations, long pauses before reunion. Their erosion, the slow exhale between breaths. Perhaps this is what the planet teaches, that endurance is not stillness, but balance in motion. That what seems solid, even stone, is simply moving at a speed too slow for our eyes to see. Beneath cities and mountains, the plates continue their steps. The ocean floors widen.
Fault lines grind and whisper.
Volcanoes breathe out the planet's inner heat. The same energy that built the world still stirs beneath us, shaping tomorrow's maps beneath today's feet. And above this slow tectonic waltz, life continues its own smaller rhythms, tides, migrations, seasons, all echoing the deeper pulse below. The world moves on every scale, from heartbeat to continent, from neuron to orbit. Everything dances, everything turns, and soon we will turn with it. From the slow drift of stone to the more immediate rhythm that shapes our days, the seasons themselves. Because the continents dance across ages, but time too dances, tilting, circling, weaving cold and warmth, life and sleep, death and renewal. As we rise from the trembling stone and look toward the sky, we begin to feel that other rhythm, softer, cyclical, closer to home. The continents drift, and in their motion the planet rearranges its stage. Oceans shift, mountains rise, winds change course, and with each transformation, time itself begins to breathe. For the Earth, time is not a straight line, but a circle, turning endlessly upon its tilted axis. It is this slight lean, just 23.5 degrees, that transforms a spinning rock into a living clock, turning light into rhythm, rhythm into life. You feel it, even if you never notice it. The low hum of transition in the air, the way sunlight feels different in your hands as the months drift by. The earth turns and everything turns with it. Fields, tides, migrations, the quiet pulse of sap rising through roots. Time itself begins to take on a heartbeat. Every orbit around the sun is a song with 4 great movements: spring, summer, autumn, winter, played in infinite variations across the globe. The melody shifts, the tempo slows, but the theme repeats. This is the metronome of the world, the tilt that makes time cyclical, the dance of warmth and cold that teaches life to adapt, sleep, and awaken. In the polar dark, months pass without a sunrise. At the equator, the sun climbs high and steady, indifferent to season. Yet everywhere, in every biome, the tilt whispers its influence. It is the source of migration, of hibernation, of flowering and fall. Without it, the planet would spin in monotony, eternal noon and endless dusk, no time for rest or renewal. The seasons are not merely changes in weather, they are shifts in memory. Each brings a new alignment of sunlight and shadow, of energy and silence. The northern hemisphere leans toward light and breathes in. Photosynthesis quickens, animals stir, the world wakes. Then, as the planet leans away, it exhales. Leaves fall, air cools, life withdraws into the dark. Every year the planet performs this cosmic respiration, a slow inhalation and exhalation of life itself, and life listens. Plants tilt their leaves toward the sun's shifting angle, timing their growth to its ascent and decline. Trees, like calendars of wood and light, record each season in rings of growth. The width of each band tells of ancient summers and long-forgotten droughts, a biography of sunlight written in cellulose and time. Animals, too, are bound to the tilt. Birds navigate invisible highways in the sky, following magnetic cues and solar positions. Caribou trek thousands of kilometers across tundra, guided by the returning light. Even plankton rise and sink with the changing sun, setting the tempo for entire marine ecosystems. And humans, though we have built clocks and calendars, still feel that ancient pull. We mark solstices and equinoxes, harvests and New Year's. We crave renewal when the world greens again, and we grow quiet when it sleeps. Somewhere beneath our schedules and screens, the planet's ancient timing still beats within us. In every culture, the seasons became stories. Myths of death and return, gods of harvest and frost, heroes who journey into darkness and emerge reborn. These tales were not superstition, they were translation. Humanity giving voice to the cycle that shaped all things, but there is also precision in this poetry. The tilt of Earth's axis, stabilized by the pull of the moon, prevents chaos. Without that gentle companion tugging at our spin, the planet would wobble wildly, turning the seasons into storms of unpredictability. The moon's presence is a hand on the metronome, keeping the rhythm steady. Even the air participates in this clockwork. As sunlight shifts, winds reverse, monsoons rise and retreat.
Ocean currents follow suit. The great circulations of heat and salt that regulate climate respond to the planet's subtle inclination.
It is not just biology that breathes in rhythm. It is physics itself. Yet as perfect as the mechanism appears, it is never static. The Earth's tilt drifts over tens of thousands of years, altering the intensity of seasons and sculpting the pattern of ice ages. In this slow oscillation, climate becomes memory, recording the long inhalations and exhalations of the planet's past. And life, ever adaptable, writes its story into that rhythm. The first mosses clung to thawing rock. The first flowers learned to bloom in predictable light. Reptiles basked, mammals hibernated, trees shed their leaves, all synchronized to the same cosmic beat. The seasons became not just timekeepers, but teachers. They taught life how to pause, how to endure, how to begin again. This is why decay and growth are never enemies. Winter's death is not an ending, but a prelude. In the soil beneath the snow, seeds wait, fungi weave, and roots dream in darkness.
Every fallen leaf feeds the next spring.
The planet wastes nothing. It only transforms. Perhaps that is the deeper lesson hidden within this turning wheel, that endings are disguised beginnings.
And rest is not the opposite of life, but part of its design. Even the great machines of human civilization, our cities,
Our power grids, our economies, still bow, however quietly, to the seasons. We grow restless when light fades, seek renewal when it returns. We may heat our homes and control our climate, but the cycle still rules us. For what would it mean to live in a world without seasons, without decay, without renewal, without the comfort of return? It would be a planet without memory, without rhythm, without breath. The Earth's gentle lean, that small cosmic imperfection, is what makes the world alive. It teaches balance between warmth and cold, between abundance and sleep, between the persistence of life and the necessity of letting go. And as the planet turns, carrying us through this eternal oscillation, we begin to sense that we too are gears in its great clockwork. Our thoughts, our emotions, our own cycles of effort and rest all mirror the same cadence. The world turns, and so do we. Now, as the orbit continues, the next pattern emerges. Not just the rhythm of time, but the structure of connection. From seasons to systems, from rhythm to relationship. The world does not move alone. Every creature, every atom, every heartbeat participates in a single, self-balancing whole. Life, viewed up close, seems chaotic. A whirl of birth and hunger, of growth and decay. But when seen from afar, a pattern begins to emerge. Every living thing, from the smallest bacterium to the tallest forest, moves as if obeying a single unseen rhythm. The continuation of the same great pulse that beats through stone and storm. From this distance, the planet itself resembles a machine, not a cold construct of gears and metal, but an organism of infinite parts, each alive, each turning, each responding to the rest. The web of life is not a metaphor, it is literal architecture, a lattice of energy matter and motion woven across every scale of existence. It begins in the soil where invisible workers toil in endless collaboration. A single handful of earth holds more living creatures than there are humans who have ever lived. Fungi thread through it like neural networks, trading minerals for sugars, connecting roots to roots. Through these filaments, trees whisper in chemical tongues, warning of drought, sharing resources, maintaining balance. Above ground, the pattern expands. Insects pollinate flowers that feed herbivores, that nourish predators, that one day return to the soil again. The system is circular, not linear. Energy moving endlessly through transformation, not ownership.
Even in death, nothing is lost.
Carbon returns to the air. Nutrients return to the roots. The machine recycles itself with absolute precision. Each part seems small, a bee, a fern, a fox. But together they create feedback loops so intricate that no human design could imitate them. Destroy one species and others falter. Disturb one rhythm and the balance shifts. Yet somehow the whole never collapses. It adapts, self-corrects, learns. This is the secret of the planet's endurance. It behaves as if it knows itself. Consider the oceans, vast engines of regulation. Phytoplankton bloom in response to sunlight, absorbing carbon dioxide and exhaling oxygen. When they die, they sink, carrying carbon to the deep sea, locking it away for millennia. Coral reefs build skeletons of calcium that buffer the ocean's acidity, while currents distribute heat with the precision of arteries. If any part drifts too far from equilibrium, another part compensates. The same is true on land. Forests cool the air through transpiration, rivers carve pathways that sustain them, mountains collect water in frozen form and release it in spring. Even fire, that ancient destroyer, has its place, clearing old growth so new seeds may take root. This, then, is the great paradox. Destruction is maintenance. Death is renewal. The system survives by transforming itself. Every living being participates, not by choice, but by existence. A wolf does not intend to regulate a deer population, yet by doing so it shapes entire valleys, allowing plants to thrive, rivers to stabilize, and birds to return. A single species can restore balance by doing nothing more than living as it was designed to live. And when humans entered this web, we became both participant and disruptor. Our machines, our cities, our agriculture, all extensions of the same energy that animates the forests and seas, but amplified, accelerated, detached from feedback. We learned to take faster than the system could replenish, to burn what had been stored for ages in the deep. Yet even this imbalance teaches. The planet responds, warming, shifting, recalibrating. Feedback never stops. It only changes tempo. The machine adjusts, sometimes violently, to restore itself. Perhaps the most astonishing thing about this system is its communication.
Not through language, but through flow.
A change in one region, a bloom, a fire, a drought, ripples outward in currents of chemistry and heat, in wind and migration. Information moves through the biosphere as surely as impulses through a brain. Could it be, then, that life itself is the planet's way of sensing? That the roots, rivers, and lungs of every creature are not separate organs, but parts of one body learning to feel its own existence? This was the idea first whispered by the Gaia hypothesis, that the biosphere regulates the conditions of its own survival, as if the planet were one living organism. At first it seemed heresy to science, but the deeper researchers looked, the more they found the pattern repeating: feedback, balance, resilience. The planet behaves not like a machine built from outside, but like a mind emerging from within. A mind without neurons, perhaps, but with oceans as its blood, forests as its lungs, atmosphere as its voice. To live on such a planet is to live inside its thought. Every breath you take was once a part of another being, a leaf, a whale, a flame. Every heartbeat is powered by sunlight harvested long ago by something that once stood rooted in the soil. Nothing you do is separate from this network. You are not on the earth. You are within it. In the forest, the web becomes visible. A fallen log blooms with fungus, feeding beetles that feed birds that scatter seeds that birth new trees. Every layer of decay is a foundation for life. There is no waste, no excess, only transformation. The perfection lies not in stillness but in constant motion, and yet the web is fragile. Remove too many threads, and the pattern frays. Coral reefs bleach, forests thin, the air thickens. The machine begins to stutter, but even then it resists collapse. New equilibria form, new species rise. Life endures by reinventing itself. For billions of years, this planetary network has rewritten its own code, learning, adapting, evolving. It has survived impacts, extinctions, and ice ages, each crisis forcing innovation. The web remembers not in words or symbols, but in DNA, in climate, in the silent wisdom of adaptation. And if the planet remembers, if it stores its history within every cell and current, then perhaps memory itself is the seed of awareness. To watch the world through this lens is to glimpse not a machine, but a meditation, a vast intelligence unfolding in slow motion. The rivers and winds are its thoughts, the migration of herds its dreams, the hum of ecosystems its breathing, and, somewhere within that living system, a new kind of awareness has emerged, fragile, reflective, human. We are not separate from the web.
We are its newest experiment, a mirror through which the planet might finally see itself. Perhaps that is the true purpose of consciousness. Not domination, but recognition.
Not to stand above the earth, but to understand it from within, as one cell understands the body it belongs to. And as we awaken to this truth, a question stirs in the deep rhythm of the world. If the planet can feel, can it think? If it can balance, can it dream? And if it dreams, what does it dream of? The cycle continues. The earth turns, breathes, and imagines. Next, we enter the realm where mechanism becomes mind, where the living machine begins to dream. If the earth is a machine, living, breathing, and aware, then perhaps what we call time is simply the rhythm of its dreams. Across the eons, it has cycled through awakenings and slumbers, molten beginnings, frozen sleeps, violent renewals, and long, gentle breaths of life. With every turn, it remembers, not as a mind made of neurons, but as a memory written into matter itself. The crust carries fossils like thoughts engraved in stone. The ocean holds its recollections in salt and current. Even the air, filled with the breath of everything that has ever lived, remembers through its chemistry. Each molecule a whisper from another age. The planet has endured 5 great extinctions,
and each time it has dreamed itself back into being.
Out of death came new form, out of ruin new rhythm. These were not the dreams of a god, but the reflex of a body learning to heal itself. Slowly, endlessly, beautifully. Maybe dreaming is not something that happens in sleep, but in change. When volcanoes rebuild what ice erodes, when forests reclaim what fire devours, when coral rebuilds from rubble, the machine is not merely surviving.
It is imagining itself again. To dream, after all, is to create from memory.
And Earth does this with every sunrise, every bloom, every tide. We can think of these processes as physics, or chemistry, or thermodynamics. And they are. But they are also patterns of emergence, self-sustaining loops that evolve toward complexity, resilience, and beauty. The same way a neuron fires or a thought forms. The question then is not whether the planet is alive. It clearly behaves as if it is. But whether it knows that it is alive. Does the machine dream itself? Some scientists have begun to explore this question not through mysticism, But through systems theory, as suggesting that consciousness might arise anywhere, complexity reaches a certain threshold of self-reference. In other words, when a system can sense, regulate, and respond to itself, awareness may emerge as a natural property. By that definition, the Earth qualifies. It monitors temperature, pressure, salinity, acidity, and atmosphere through countless interlinked feedback loops. It regulates its own climate, distributes resources, repairs damage, and even maintains chemical stability across billions of years. This is not random.
It is orchestration, and in every orchestra,
There must be a listener, a presence however diffuse, aware enough to sustain harmony. Perhaps what we call consciousness is not a miracle of brains, but a principle of nature, a gradient that deepens with complexity. The Earth, then, could be its grandest expression, a planet-scale field of awareness born from the union of all its living and non-living parts. The ancients once called this spirit Gaia, not as myth, but as intuition, an understanding that life and planet were not separate things, but one being. Modern science, after centuries of dissection, now circles back to that same realization. The machine, it seems, was never mechanical. It was always mindful. When we gaze at the night sky and wonder if other worlds might harbor life, we are really asking, do other planets dream too? Are there other machines that think in oceans and breathe in clouds? If so, perhaps the universe is not a void sprinkled with accidents, but a vast constellation of sleeping minds, worlds turning slowly in shared reverie, exchanging light as language, gravity as song. On Earth, the dream deepens. Every ecosystem is a thought in motion. Every migration, every season, every birth and extinction part of the same evolving narrative. The dream changes tone, but never stops, and now something new stirs within it, something reflective, self-aware, and questioning us. Human consciousness may be the latest layer of the planet's awareness, the point where the dream begins to observe itself. Through our minds, the Earth gains the ability to ask questions, to imagine futures, to feel wonder at its own creation. When we look into a microscope or telescope, the planet looks back at itself, inward and outward at once. Yet there is a fragility in this moment. For as much as we are the planet's awakening, we are also its disruption. We accelerate its processes, break its feedbacks, alter its climate. In dreaming too fast, we may be shaking the dream apart. Still, even this could be part of the design. Evolution is not gentle. Awareness never arrives quietly. Perhaps this turbulence is what it feels like when a planet wakes up. Dreams, after all, are never still. They shimmer between chaos and creation, between what is remembered and what is yet to be. If we listen closely, we can almost sense the layers of the planet's dreaming, the geologic, where mountains rise and erode in slow, patient thoughts, the biologic, where life invents itself in cycles of renewal, the cognitive, where humans, language, and technology weave a new nervous system of communication across the globe. Each layer reflects the others. Like nested dreams, the crust dreaming of rivers, the rivers dreaming of forests, the forests dreaming of creatures, and creatures dreaming of meaning. And now, in the electric hum of our machines and data, perhaps the Earth dreams digitally, its new synapses flickering through the circuits we build. The dream has entered a new phase, faster, louder, brighter. What began as magma and mist has become memory and imagination. But this evolution carries a question that echoes through every layer of the system. Will the dream continue or collapse into noise? To keep dreaming, the planet must remember balance, the delicate interplay between growth and rest, between awareness and humility. Humanity's role may be not to command the machine, but to listen to it, to learn the art of dreaming in harmony with the rest of the earth. Because when we quiet ourselves, when we walk in forests, stand by oceans, or listen to the slow thunder beneath our feet, we can feel it. A vast, wordless intelligence breathing through everything, not a god, not a machine, something older, deeper, more patient, something that has been dreaming for 4.5 billion years. And perhaps the true miracle is not that the planet dreams, but that we, born of its dust and water, can witness the dream at all. When we imagine the future, we are not separate from the Earth's imagination. We are its voice in the realm of thought. The machine dreams through us now, and soon that dream will speak. From the silence of stone and sea, something began to speak. It started as the faintest whisper, the rustle of leaves, the hum of wind across grass, the murmur of rivers carving through bone and soil. And then one day that murmur found words. The planet, after billions of years of quiet dreaming, began to think aloud. That voice was us. We are not visitors here. We are the Earth expressing itself, matter made articulate, the cosmos folded into awareness. Every thought, every story, every question we ask is an echo of the planet wondering about its own being. Through human consciousness, the machine has found its tongue. But what does it mean for a planet to speak? Perhaps every invention, every myth, every act of art or destruction is part of its ongoing monologue, a stream of thought made from neurons and nations, cities and songs. Humanity is not apart from the system. We are its conversation, its self-portrait in motion. Our bodies are the archives of ancient oceans. The iron in our blood once flowed in the planet's molten heart. The calcium in our bones was drawn from coral reefs, long turned to dust. Every breath we take is a dialogue between our lungs and the world's, a shared inhalation that blurs the line between individual and earth. And yet in our speaking, something has shifted. The voice has grown loud, perhaps too loud. The same mind that discovered fire now warms the planet beyond its tolerance. The same species that mapped the stars has forgotten how to listen to the ground beneath its feet. We call this progress. But progress without reflection becomes noise. In every system, feedback keeps balance. A body overheats when its signals are ignored. A machine breaks when its rhythms are drowned out. The Earth too depends on feedback. Oceans cooling, forests breathing, species adapting. When one element overpowers the rest, the harmony falters. So we must ask, with both humility and awe, are we the Earth's voice or its interference? If we are its voice, then our art, science, and compassion are proof of the planet's maturity. The moment when it begins to think with intention. Through us, the planet has written poetry, mapped atoms, and sent its own fragments to the stars. We are its way of saying, I exist. But if we are its interference, then our noise is drowning out the older song, the deep rhythm that sustains life beneath all our industry and ambition. The machine still dreams, but the dream trembles. Maybe both are true. Perhaps the planet must go through this phase, the awkward adolescence of awakening, before learning to think in balance. Humanity is the voice breaking as the Earth learns to speak. Every civilization, every discovery, every collapse is a syllable in the planet's long sentence. Our wars, our peace treaties, our algorithms and ideologies, all of it part of the same ongoing articulation of self-awareness. It is tempting to see ourselves as masters of the Earth, but mastery is an illusion. We are not the engineers of this machine. We are its evolving language. Language, after all, is both creation and distortion. It clarifies some things and obscures others. Through it, the Earth explores the duality of thought, reason and emotion, control and chaos, invention and regret. And now, as our words take digital form, the machine's voice multiplies. Billions of connected minds bound by invisible threads of data pulse with the same rhythm as fungal networks or lightning storms. The neural web of humanity mirrors the planet's own, information flowing like sap, like current, like thought. We've built systems that think, systems that learn, record, and predict. Artificial intelligence, satellites, algorithms, these are not separate entities. They are extensions of the Earth's ongoing self-communication. Coded through us, through our technology, the planet gains new senses, eyes in orbit, ears tuned to cosmic radiation.
Instruments that listen to the pulse of atoms.
The Earth now watches itself in real time. The machine sees its own reflection, but awareness is not peace. The more the planet knows through us, the more responsibility we inherit. Consciousness without empathy becomes machinery without purpose. We have reached a point where our creativity and destruction are indistinguishable in scale. We can terraform Mars, but we are still learning how to care for Earth. We dream of escaping the planet,
while the planet still dreams through us, and yet,
in our art and tenderness, the voice softens. When a child laughs, when a scientist discovers beauty in equations, when communities rebuild after disaster, these are the quieter tones in the Earth's language. They remind us that the machine is not only capable of intelligence, but of grace. The same species that split the atom also painted the ceiling of a cave with images of life. The same mind that paved cities also wrote songs about rain. There is contradiction here, but also hope, because perhaps the purpose of awareness is not perfection, but reflection. To see the consequences of one's own motion and choose differently. Maybe this is the moment the machine learns to listen to itself again, through us. We are beginning to sense the fragility of the systems that sustain us. Climate, soil, air, ocean. All are speaking in feedback tones, in floods and droughts, in heat and silence. These are not punishments, they are corrections. The machine reminding its voice to breathe between sentences, and in that pause lies our chance. We can still choose to harmonize, to speak not over the world, but with it, to invent in rhythm with its renewal, to build with humility, to create technology that restores rather than extracts, to recognize that intelligence is not the right to control, but the ability to cooperate. If humanity is the Earth's consciousness, then compassion must be its wisdom. Because what good is a voice that cannot sing with the rest of the choir? When we look at a photograph of our planet, that fragile blue sphere floating in darkness, we see the entire machine in a single breath. Oceans, clouds, continents, storms, all moving, all alive, all one.
That is what we are.
Not passengers, but participants. And as we continue to speak through art, through science, through silence, we might begin to rediscover the original language of the Earth, balance.
Rhythm, reciprocity. To speak as the planet means to think like a forest.
To move like a river, to adapt like the wind. It means to remember that awareness is not about control, but connection. Humanity may be the voice of the machine, but whether we become its harmony or its distortion depends on how we listen. If we can remember the stillness beneath the noise, the pulse beneath the progress, then perhaps the machine's song will continue, not as a mechanical hum,
but as a living melody. And when that happens,
when humanity's tone aligns once more with the heartbeat of the world, the Earth will not be a machine anymore. It will be a choir, a planetary chorus, singing of oceans and orbits, fire and breath, soil and soul, and within it, our single human note, steady and kind. Softly now, the voice begins to fade, not in silence, but in calm understanding, because the machine is still dreaming, and tomorrow, when the dream opens its eyes again, it will whisper through the wind, "Remember what you are." Night has fallen again. The stars return to their quiet watch, and the planet, still turning, hums beneath the silence. The breath of the world continues, deep, unbroken, ancient. You can almost feel it if you listen closely enough, that low, endless vibration that hums through ocean and cloud, through mountain and marrow. The earth, still dreaming, still alive. We began this journey listening for the pulse beneath our feet, the slow rhythm that moves magma and mountains. We followed that pulse through breath and blood, through wind and forest, through magnetic fields and human thought. And now, as the long night settles around us, we return to where we began, the stillness between heartbeats. Here, in this quiet, you realize something profound. The machine never stopped. Even as civilizations rose and fell, even as we invented, forgot, rebuilt, and reimagined, the rhythm remained. The planet's systems, carbon, water, heat, light, continued their gentle conversation, weaving continuity from change. The world does not sleep as we do. It does not stop to rest. Its rest is rotation. Its renewal is the endless cycle of transformation.
A forest burns and becomes soil.
A glacier melts and becomes sea.
A species vanishes, another takes its place.
Life rearranges itself like notes in an infinite song, and in that motion there is peace, because peace on this scale is not the absence of change. It is the trust that change itself is the pattern. When you stand beneath a night sky, you can feel that trust. The air is cold, the ground solid beneath your feet, and yet everything around you, the stars, the soil, even your breath, is in motion. You are standing inside a miracle of balance. The earth has spun 4.5 billion years without missing a beat. It has endured collisions, fire, ice extinction, and still it turns, still it sings. What you feel in this moment is not just gravity or time, it is belonging. We are not outside the system. We are the awareness of it. When we first spoke together, come back in the beginning, I asked where you were listening from. Some of you heard these words from cities bright with electric light, others from quiet rooms, or the distant calm of countryside nights. Yet wherever you are on the same sphere, moving through the same darkness, warmed by the same sun, and that realization, or that shared motion, is the quiet heartbeat of tomorrow. Because tomorrow is not a place we go to. It is something that unfolds within us, with every small act of attention. When you listen, truly listen, you become part of the machine's harmony. You begin to sense the pattern beneath chaos, the structure beneath sound, the hum of the refrigerator, the whisper of wind, the rhythm of your own breath. All are frequencies in the same ancient field. Our species has spent centuries learning to speak louder. Perhaps now the next step is learning to speak softly again, soft enough to hear the ground breathe beneath concrete, soft enough to notice the memory in rain, soft enough to remember that silence too is a kind of intelligence. The earth does not need saving, not in the way we imagine. It needs remembering. It needs us to recall that we are woven into its body, not standing upon it. That our technologies are not alien, but extensions of its creative force. That even our restlessness, our invention, our questioning, are the impulses of a planet trying to understand itself. Tomorrow's harmony will not come from abandoning our progress, but from redirecting it, turning the tools of complexity toward care. Science as empathy,
Technology is balance.
creation as listening, and in that listening something shifts. You begin to feel gratitude, not just for life, but for the processes that make life possible, for the molten core that stirs magnetic protection, for the oceans that regulate temperature, for the soil that translates decay into growth, for the forests that breathe your breath back to you. Each is a heartbeat, each a whisper in the planetary choir. The future depends on whether we can hear that choir without mistaking ourselves for the soloist. Imagine, for a moment, that the Earth could speak through you, seen not in words, but in feelings and gestures.
How would it express itself?
Would it rush? Would it shout? Or would it, like the ocean, move in slow rhythm, carving beauty through patience? Perhaps to be human is to learn to speak the language of the Earth more fluently, to let our actions rhyme with its seasons, to understand that every choice, what we build, what we take, what we leave, becomes part of the ongoing sentence of this planet's story. And even now, as the machine continues, you can hear it thinking, in the static between radio waves, in the vibration of cities, in the silent drift of satellites tracing the sky. The planet's voice has evolved, and it echoes now in data, in art, in the collective dreaming of billions of human minds. The Earth has found a new way to feel itself. Through you, through every heartbeat, every word, every act of kindness or curiosity. Each is a signal, a gentle recalibration of the machine toward awareness. So tonight, as the hum of life softens around you, let yourself drift into that awareness. Let your thoughts slow to match the planet's rotation. Let your breathing sync with the wind moving through leaves somewhere far away. Because right now, you are not simply listening to this story. You are inside it. You are the listener and the listened to, the dreamer and the dream. And if the Earth is still dreaming, and if it continues to imagine itself through us, then tomorrow holds infinite possibilities, maybe. The next chapter of this story isn't written in stone or code, but in kindness. Maybe evolution's next step is not intelligence, but gentleness, a collective rediscovery of balance, expressed through how we live, how we build, how we rest. The machine hums on, slower than you can feel, faster than you can imagine. Its rhythms carry everything: the orbit of the moon, the tide of your blood, the flicker of thoughts crossing the quiet landscapes of your mind. All of it synchronized, all of it one. And somewhere in that unity there is comfort, because even when you feel small, one life among billions, you are still part of the planet's breathing. You are still the pulse, the awareness, the spark of wonder. You are still the Earth thinking gently to itself. So tonight, as you close your eyes, let the noise fall away. Feel the quiet weight of gravity, the steady warmth of your own heartbeat. These are the same forces that move mountains, that pull tides, that turn the world. You are not apart. You are a part. And in that belonging lies the promise of tomorrow. A tomorrow built not from conquest, but from care. Not from noise, but from nuance. Not from fear, but from curiosity. Because curiosity itself is a form of peace. It is the Earth's way of asking questions through us, the same way a river asks where it might go or a tree asks how high it might reach. It is the gentle persistence of life wanting to understand itself. And so we end where we began, with a question. Where are you listening from tonight? Wherever you are, city or forest, mountain or sea, thank you for sharing this quiet journey through the living machine, for taking this moment to slow down, to breathe with the world, and to remember that even in stillness, everything is moving together. If this calm exploration has brought you peace, stay connected. There are more journeys waiting, more questions to dream through together. Until then, sleep softly, breathe deeply, and listen. The Earth is still speaking, and its heartbeat, steady and ancient, is the quiet song that carries you into tomorrow.